This would be my next one, and I'm not sure how certain of this I am, but I do think it is a pretty big trend. And it's taken a while, I would say, for this to come into view because of a number of confounders. 2016 was looked at as maybe the last great regular season. The 2017 Warriors won 67 games because just they were that good. They didn't even have to try that hard. There's a feeling like they were not even that veteran of a team, frankly. You had almost all those guys still in their primes, and they were considered unassailable. And then 2019 was the last real season. Then 2020, 2021, maybe in 2022, when you had all the COVID absences during the Omicron. Those are a ton of confounders during those regular seasons and even playoffs. And maybe it was kind of getting back to normal by the end of 22, and then 23 Nuggets win it pretty easily. 24 Celtics win it pretty easily. But what's starting to become clear to me is that because of the nature of, and also I would say during those times, load management became a huge thing. The Clippers got Kawhi, he was hurt, they're going to load manage him, but they're considered one of the championship favorites. And the Lakers with the 35-year-old LeBron, they win in 2020. I don't know what would have happened to them if they had played out the full season, but whatever happened there. But I think now the whole, and it's been lost sight of because of all the load management stuff, is just what the regular season is and how much it matters at this point in time and what you need to be successful in the regular season, because some of it is just that the old guys aren't as good as they used to be, right? Like Steph Curry, KD, LeBron in their early 30s were unbelievable. Those guys in their late 30s, probably not. And then there wasn't like a great crop of guys coming up behind them. But basically what I'm getting to here is that just how hard this game is to play athletically, how hard it is to stay healthy over a full season playing at the level of intensity that's required. We're seeing offensive rebounding go up. Like that's adding another component to this now, where you have to cover so much ground. And if you're a weak link, you're going to just get picked on every possession. And the fast break is being emphasized more, and covering more ground defensively to stop threes is being emphasized more. And the teams can shoot more threes, and more contact is even allowed at the basket really than ever before. Just the physicality required to play this game over an 82 game season. And then you also throw in the play-in, and you throw in the lottery changes, and that it is just veteran teams can't just show up or sit a guy and roll the balls out. So younger teams actually probably can do that, right? Like the Celtics, for example, are a little bit younger of a team, and they have a great system. But the number of teams that are just able to take a night off in the regular season and still win and rest guys, it's just very low, I think. But yet at the same time, the consequences of being bad in the regular season are greater than they have ever been. And so these old teams have to push, and you just end up with guys being exhausted. You see more injuries in the playoffs. So ultimately, I think the trend that I will try to distill this down to is just that this is kind of a young man's game where depth and physicality, obviously you still need shooting, you still need skill, but you just need a lot of options during the regular season who are good. And you better figure out a way to get that and to play with the effort level and the intensity and athleticism required to win on a night-to-night basis and have a floor, as I've kind of been talking about. So that was, I apologize, I was very long-winded because it's so many factors there, but I think that's something where you're just going to see these teams that are kind of just old teams that could kind of get by 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and then turn it on in the playoffs and still work their way to 53 wins. You just can't do that.
It's a huge point. And I think that you're right on the money. Whether it's for the current time or beyond is going to be an open question. And another kind of factor that I want to mention, you mentioned it briefly, but I think it bears further emphasis, is that some of the key players, load management, Kawhi Leonard is the poster child of that. But the older players getting older, staying good, so staying relevant, but no one coming in to necessarily take their place, that has kind of pushed this in another way. And we've seen teams be cautious with injuries and everything like that. And in order to be a competitive regular season team, you need a number of different things. You need enough depth and quality to be able to survive injuries to ideally any player in your rotation. And we've seen some teams get totally sidetracked by that. And most teams don't. That's why you could see some rough starts to the season. I mean, Milwaukee, of course, Giannis missed some time, but they also, Middleton's been out and they've been terrible. And that's a part of it. It's not the whole story. And I'm interested in terms of whether we can incorporate this a little bit more into like our over-unders, whether there was stuff that I missed or everything like that. But and then the other factor that so you brought in the play-in, and I think that's a fair consideration, is also the lingering effects of some of these low seeds doing well a couple of years ago. Is that a lesson for some of these teams that, oh, we could be the 6th seed and we can do okay, we could still make it in? Now, I think it's true that it's very hard to win a championship that way. But if you kind of are honest with yourself and you're like, well, we weren't going to be the 1 or the 2 anyway, maybe the 6 isn't that different from the 3. Why are we going to push? And that could really shift the sands in the regular season too.
Yeah, but then it's like, all right, you probably have to at some point, right? Like Philly, I'm sure they would love to just show up and play the playoffs. That'd be great, but you can't do that. Like like without Joel Embiid and without Paul George actually playing, like they're well under 500. And Milwaukee is one of these old teams, and Phoenix will be an interesting test case, so they actually have more depth this year now to work around these stars. Golden State is also a very interesting one that I considered bringing them up, but I'm not confident enough then that they're on the way to like a true renaissance, but they have just absolutely dominated here early. But they have these 12 deep team where they can just have so much versatility, and
they just went 3-0 in games Stephen Curry didn't play in. Now there's some important context for at least 2 of those 3 games in terms of opponent availability, but they did still win. So it's interesting that actually ties in well with my number 3, but I still want to say my number 2 ahead of that because it ties in, and we've talked about this team a lot, especially relative to their record so far, but it's taken me a very long time to get here. I think LeBron James is no longer a game-to-game force.